We back. It's gonna be long, so let's get into it. We're gonna talk about virtuous woman, and it kind of weird for me as a man to talk about what is a good woman, because that's kind of like generalizing things. Good, what good for one might be not for the other. So I have the idea of, if I want to have good discernment on what is a good woman, I feel I can learn the best. I can learn best from good women themselves. But it's a tricky thing. So the best thing I can do is use a word of reference. So I using the word virtuous in this sense. So we're gonna talk about that is, besides what is good, quote unquote, or bad, right? So let's begin. Understand that true beauty lies within. That's number one. True beauty is virtuous because true beauty develops out of good character and caring about the world. With those character and caring, those unseen things, again, things you can't touch and bottle up and see and sell it. Before you consider looking virtuous, you need to look internally so that you actually become virtuous. True inner beauty and virtue goes hand in hand. If you practice the life of a virtuous woman, you will also be a beautiful woman. Your beauty will be authentic, unique, and self-expressive rather than conformist. So we got authentic, unique, and self-expressive. And some more unseen. Let your outward beauty reflect the inward. Maintaining inner beauty does not mean that you cannot look beautiful on the outside as well. Beauty is harmonious. So if you are beautiful on the inside, you should take care of your body and treat it enough respect so that others can glimpse your beauty as well. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, so you see we're gonna be dealing with philosophers, deep thinkers throughout time, because these are those things that unseen, right? The three characteristics of beauty are radiance, harmony, and wholeness. Beautiful things shine, and their radiance can be seen externally. For beauty to be complete, outward beauty must harmonize with inward beauty. In order for beauty to be whole, it should exist outwardly and inwardly. Your beauty shines in a way you treat yourself, others, and life itself. This does not mean that you need to be supermodel pretty or hung up on your looks. It does not mean that you should not be afraid to look your best. And that's why I always used to hear from my people, always look your best, look your best, look your best. Those seeds were planted, right? So give these lessons to children, young daughters. There is a certain amount of self-satisfaction one feels when looking in the mirror and liking what one sees. Loving yourself enough to strive for this sensation is a healthy and virtuous amount of outward beauty. Do not use your outward beauty to replace or make up for inward beauty. A difficult task for women nowadays is balancing the fine line between looking their best while dressing modestly. A revealing outfit might temporarily attract men, but men of character are won over by women of virtue. While men are responsible for their own thoughts and actions, they are also visual beings and tend to be influenced easily by what they see. Being kind enough and respectful enough to self to attract the attention, self-image you want to attract. And that's some more modern English, so I read a little faster. You can see. I like older English, very more thought-provoking in its form. That's more modernized, and a lot maybe goes without saying, but you'll be surprised. Treat your body well. There is a certain amount of virtue in respecting your body and treating it well. Stay healthy by eating healthy foods. Of course, you could be a virtuous woman Even if you're not in a perfect shape, or even if you indulge in occasional piece of junk food, because what she trying to say is we're dealing with a lot of mental things and not mere outside things. And virtue, respect is a virtue, however, and that includes self-respect. If you respect your body, you should at least try to care for it well enough to stay healthy and avoid exposing your body to things that are intentionally harmful, like drugs and abusive amount of alcohol. Self-destruction behavior breeds more self-destruction behavior. So be wise enough to prevent it. If you indulge, remember that the same mind that got you into trouble won't be the one that gets you out of it. And she being careful of being too judgmental on these things. You see, she says so if you do indulge, because we are adults here. Temperance, act in service to others. While you should not ignore your own needs, you should think highly of needs of others and be there to take care of those needs when you can, what we call charity. An obvious example of service would be volunteering your time in a formal situation to help others. Less obvious, however, are informal ways you volunteer your time and energy. For example, a virtuous woman would be there for a friend who needs a shoulder to cry on, even if it means missing out on a favorite show. Limited sale. A lot of these is also for men too, like charity and temperance and these lessons. Be hospitable, generous, and kind. Kindness is about more than nice words and pleasant smiles. To be truly kind to someone, you need to approach that person with a giving spirit. To be kind means that you should be the sort of person whom others can turn to for positive words and actions. It is not enough to simply exchange a few nice words in passing. And in the South, we've been trained very young to learn manners, good manners. Do not falter on your responsibilities. If you are given a task at school or work, finish it in a timely manner and without procrastinating. Again, some of these for both genders. Another way to look at this principle is to label it as self-discipline. Yep. Even if no one is watching and you are able to procrastinate on the task and put less than your best effort into it, you should still do your best with it and complete the task promptly. True virtue is not found merely in the actions that others can see, but in the actions you perform where no one is looking. Good advice. Use your money and earth resources wisely. You can indulge occasionally, but on the whole, you should not be irresponsible with your money. Spend it flippantly or be wasteful. Frugality is a type of virtue which involves careful stewardshipness of resources and money. You see the same words showing up when we talk about this term virtuous. This does not mean that you should be stingy or cheap, though. It does not mean that you should take care of your financial obligation before using your money on indulgences. In other words, you should not be spending money on an exotic vacation if it means leaving bills or loans unpaid. A lot of this goes without saying, but use your time wisely. Everyone needs time to relax, but overall, you should try to stay active rather than fall into lazy or slothful behavior. Sloth. In short, you should be a good steward of time that is allotted you. Take time to relax and recharge as needed, since you can only be at your best when you are sufficiently well rested. Do not stay active simply for the sake of staying active, though. Be willing to do the work which needs to be done and take care to channel your efforts in ways that will benefit you and those around you by not frivolous with your time. Have faith. Traditionally, having faith refers to faith in God or some religion principle. If you do not believe in God, however, you can still exercise the principle of faith by faithful in your pursuit of virtue. A biblical example of a virtuous woman is Ruth, who chose to follow the God of Israel in spite of the difficulty it brought her when it would be easier for her to return to Moab and worship the gods of her childhood. This story can teach a valuable lesson even if you do not practice faith in Judeo-Christian contexts. Ruth has committed herself to faith in the God of Israel and was ready to face the consequences, even though backing down would have been easier. And that's just saying standing on something, on principles. You too should commit yourself to your faith in God or in the goodness of virtue and remain faithful in spite of challenges. Keep your body pure. Another way to phrase this would be to respect your body. Treat your body as a treasure and do not give it away to just anyone. Traditionally, keeping your body pure means waiting until marriage before having sex. Nearly every major religion will agree on this point. Even if you have no religion to claim, the principle of purity still applies to you. Sex should be treated as something special that should only be cherished between two people in love. Be receptive. Instead of stubbornly sticking to your own opinions, regardless of whether they are right or wrong, you should be open to critique and advice. Weigh outside influence carefully to determine if it is beneficial or harmful and act accordingly. Cultivate reason. Women tend to be very emotional beings, and downside of emotion is that it can often blind or cripple reason. Virtuous woman accepts her emotion but uses reason to temper a reaction. Govern yourself by wisdom rather by folly. This is a biblical principle taken from the book of Proverbs, but it can be applied to your life. Even if you're not a Christian, you can listen to your heart for guidance. But ultimately, you must judge a situation with your mind, using the wisdom you have built up throughout your life to accurately assess things, i.e. discernment. Respect your parents. Your parents are responsible for bringing you into the world and raising you to become the woman you currently are. To be a virtuous woman, you need to show them respect by adhering to their rules during your youth and by continuing to listen and respect their ideals as an adult. If your parent mistreats you, of course, this is another matter altogether. You need to love yourself as well as your parents. And if the best thing for you is to get away from an abusive situation, doing so is the most virtuous action you can take. Respect your husband if applicable. If you are married, you need to love and listen to your husband. Your marriage is a partnership, and your husband is expected to respect you as well, of course. You do not need to obey your husband every command, but if you married a man of character, he will not want to do anything to cause you harm. As long as this is true, then you need to at least respect your husband by discussing points of disagreements and considering his perspective before mutually reaching a conclusion. Fidelity is another way for you to respect your husband. You need to be faithful to him and must never cheat on him. Be a loving mother if applicable. If you have children, you must put their needs above your own. Raise them according to a virtuous example and help them develop into virtual men and women themselves. You need to nurture your children and attend to their needs, even when it means self-sacrifice on your part. For instance, a virtual woman and mother will tend to her child even if it means catching the bug herself. You also need to discipline your children with care and wisdom so that they know the difference between right and wrong. Orient yourself to the mean, not the extremes. Thus is a principle first discussed by Aristotle. Too much of a good thing can turn into something bad. Virtue can often be found in the middle ground between the two extremes of characteristic. We got into that in a couple of videos ago with the higher and lower self. Understanding that is what they're talking about in this. For example, take self-love. An extreme excess of this principle result in narcissism, but an extreme deficiency will produce lower self-esteem. You need to love and respect yourself to show love and respect to others, but you need to love yourself in moderation so that you do not get carried away. It's a balance between everything, a skill. Commit yourself to a virtuous life. If you really want to be a virtuous woman, you need to prepare yourself for a lifetime commitment. A virtuous life is not an act you can put on for a few days. True virtue is a lifestyle. Practice virtue until it becomes a habit. So you start with thoughts become actions. As you practice, it becomes habit, and that's why it's good to start young so they can grow with these already subconsciously as habit, these ways. But as adults, you still can do the same. We can practice it, and it'll become second nature. You can commit yourself to a virtuous life without becoming a perfectly virtuous woman overnight. The best way to create virtue in yourself is to practice virtuous behaviors so often that they become new habits. Do not be discouraged by past mistakes or mistakes you make along the way. Ultimately, if you practice principles of virtue long enough, they will become habits and characteristics of your overall person. It become you. And we do not look to the outer things, but to the things unseen. For the outer things are transient, which means goes away, dies out, disappears. But the unseen things are eternal. Love, virtue, unseen things. Before we go, we're going to look into virtue. According to moral principles, conformity of behavior are thought with the strictures of morality, good moral conduct. Without virtue, there is no freedom. A particular manifestation of moral excellence in a person, an admirable quality. Specifically, each of several qualities held by their particular importance, including the four cardinal virtues, the three theological virtues, or the seven virtues, opposed to the seven deadly sins. An inherently advantageous or excellent quality of something or someone, a favorable point, an advantage. See, that's why you deal with nobility, because even seen that they've been had an advantage, right, a higher class, but even just because of their ways and because they have, just because of their title, because they've been born that way, because they benefit to the whole. Their virtuous ways benefit the planet, the civilization, or the state, right, what they live, the creature embodying divine power. Swiftly wind up orders of heavenly beings, angels, especially women of chastity, moral conduct of sexual behavior, specifically, the inherent power of a God. Interesting. The inherent power or an efficiency of something. Okay, we're going to start right there. And I just might take on what is a good woman. I say a good woman is a virtuous one. You know, what a man don't really got control of is, the only control of is how he raised his daughter. He can't control how the woman was raised, but he could look and find a good woman if he look for the unseen things, those things, that how she was raised and her characteristic. So virtue is one of those things you can look into to find those ways. And we're going to end it right there. Peace. Until next time.